All right. Welcome to the new series of monthly webinars from the Rossing Center for Education and Dialogue. My name is Ophir Yarden, for those whom I don't know yet, and I'm a project director at Rossing. I'll be moderating this evening's panel. With me is Adi Mara, who will be helping from behind the scenes. Thanks, Adi. For those of you who may be less familiar with us, let me briefly introduce the Rossing Center. The Rossing Center for Education and Dialogue strives to be a peace-building interreligious organization based in Jerusalem that is working to develop both the desire and the capacity of Israelis, Palestinians, Muslims, Jews, and Christians, religious and secular alike, to live in an inclusive, equal, and democratic society. One sentence. We do so mostly through the education system, working with principals and teachers and with university students and school pupils. You can see more of what we do and in greater detail on our website, and the link, of course, is in the chat. Our previous webinar series featured programs in which we sought to glean from experts in the field what might be learned and applied to our situation in Israel-Palestine from the experience of others. You can find those programs on our YouTube channel. Naturally, we're launching this new season of monthly webinars with a topic that is particularly acute in this so difficult period. Today's webinar, as you know, is entitled Making It Work, and will deal with the changing realities of Jewish-Arab mixed workplaces. We at the Rossing Center are fortunate to work in such a reality, and I can say that it's been a blessing, an education, an eye-opening experience, as well as a comfort to have Palestinian Arab colleagues over these trying months. Our society, or societies, are our business, so that comes naturally. All of our presenters today direct organizations with a mixed workforce. Two are directors of institutions which serve mixed populations. One is Jewish and the other Arab. Our third speaker is the Arab co-executive director of an NGO that works to advance equality and partnership between Arab Palestinian Israelis and the country's Jewish citizens, and applies a joint partnership model in its own staffing policy. So without further ado, let me begin to introduce our speakers. And I'm grateful to each of the three of you for being with us this evening. So with us we have Dr. Maurit Beeri, who is the Director General of the Jerusalem ALYN Children's Orthopedic Hospital. Second, we have Fadi Suidan, who is the CEO of the Jerusalem International YMCA. And third, Raghad Jaraisy, the Arab co-executive director of Sikkuy-Aufoq. Dr. Beeri and Fadi will share their experiences and insights over the last 14 months, while Raghad will give us both background and a bit of a research perspective. Following the introductions, which are almost done, our sequence will be as follows. We'll hear from Raghad a brief survey of background to the mixed employment landscape in the last decade. Then Fadi and Dr. Beeri will present the realities in their institutions since October of last year, relating to before October, the crisis itself, and an overview of the last year. And then we'll return to Raghad to hear something of research about what mixed institutions have been like in the last year. After all of that, we'll open it up for your questions. So I'd like to turn it over to them. Again, thank you, all three of you, for agreeing to participate in this webinar. I'm looking forward to it very much. Personally, I'll say that many years ago, I visited ALYN and learned of your staff training for cultural competence. So I know that these issues have been at the heart of the institution for a very long time. And if I'm not mistaken, you're the first mainstream hospital in Israel to have a Muslim prayer room. Fadi and I met when our children were schoolmates in the Jewish-Arab bilingual school, and it was always a pleasure to exchange smiles with him in the morning. So far, I've enjoyed my preparatory exchanges with Raghad, and I'm as excited as the rest of you to hear from her. So I'd like to begin with each of you introducing yourselves and your institutions a bit more briefly, of course. Can we start with you, Dr. Beeri?
It's my pleasure, and thank you so much for inviting me. This is indeed very dear to my heart, as it is central to the way that ALYN Hospital looks at our professional vision, because we're concentrated on making life better for children from whichever background and independent of where they come from. We look at children with complex neurodevelopmental orthopedic situations, and we seek to integrate them into society. And though we're called a hospital and we give medical treatment, we look at the whole of the life of the child and the family and society, because we realize that it doesn't start and stop with providing the medication and treatments that the child needs, but the ultimate rehabilitation process requires deep integration with society. And to that purpose, we indeed started many years ago looking into how we can improve ourselves in providing adequate care for patients. I will try to share a short video, which I think will tell a lot about ALYN. Now with, Zoom, it doesn't always work. So pray to whichever God above you choose to that this actually works. And stay with me for a second while I try and do this. Let's try and do this. Optimism is in our nature in this line of work. Let's see.
Okay, let's get Joe.
We had so many choices when we decided to go to Israel.
Can you see it? I'm sorry. That is not.
I travel all the time, and if I
do not
fly,
okay.
if I fly Delta,
So this is an ad that's popped in.
System.
Let's
My
just
name in their system
go.
is Nathan, and on my license, my name is Nathan.
Let me try again. Okay, because this isn't whoever Nathan is, and I'm sure he's a worthy person. This is what I wanted to show you.
Okay, let's get Joe.
We had so many choices when we decided to go to Israel. Today, we're at ALYN, which is this children's hospital in Jerusalem. That's unbelievable. I just felt compelled that this was a place we had to visit, that it was going to either answer a lot of questions or even make the fascination with the conflict in the area even more confusing to me. Share with me the initiative here and your mission.
So we're a pediatric rehabilitation hospital. Basically, kids would come in with disabilities, physical disabilities, all kinds of conditions. It could be neuromuscular, brain injuries, spinal cord injuries, anything. But the fact is that a child needs to have a childhood. They need to adapt to the surrounding. They need to grow, and they need to learn how to become an adult, whatever the condition is. Now, technology and medicine have advanced so much that they help us bridge that gap between what the children can do physically and what they do need to do to develop intellectually, to be a part of society. By bringing in the high-tech companies that are around us, we've created a whole new society that supports us. So, for instance, we've convinced the Ministry of Health in Israel that there's no limit to how young you can be when you can have a powered wheelchair. It used to be from the age of 5. But then we show them that a child who knows how to operate an iPad and how can move themselves forward and backwards, they can operate a wheelchair. So they've taken away that clause, and now kids as young as 2 years can have that freedom of movement. It might sound sad to hear about a 2-year-old child in a powered wheelchair, but think about that same child lying motionless on the floor.
Yeah, no, I couldn't. I'm trying to get my head wrapped around what this hospital does, because you get a mix of, it's about children who were born with deformities or had some terrible accident that impacted their life dramatically. And this hospital specializes in treating these children in a very provocative, unique way. And the level of success and outcomes is just unmatched anywhere in the world.
the coexistence in this hospital with Arabs and Jews, Orthodox people and secular people, people who are coming from out of Israel and people who are living here, Palestinians and Israelis. This all is about the child, and it creates opportunities which I've never seen anywhere else.
Why do they put down their differences here and allow collaboration? Yet when they walk out the door, things change.
The space here allows people to concentrate on one thing at a time. We're goal oriented. And when you're thinking about the child, the specific child, not about what their family name is and what the parents do outside the hospital, the air gets cleaner and voices calm. And we don't allow outside noises to go and come in. And I believe that the message that come out of this, that surrounds children and health, this definitely can move out of the door. These things are beyond hospital care. It changes society.
The uniqueness
Okay,
of
so I will
this
leave
facility
this.
is
I think you get the gist. It wasn't an advertisement. We didn't ask them to make this movie, but I thought that they got the gist of the place really well. The point is, what helps ALYN becomes such a unique place is that we're all joined in caring for the children. It's a unique thing about the health system. It allows us to cooperate and live together, whatever happens outside the door. It isn't easy. It sounds very rosy, but actually, definitely this last year has been very challenging, both in terms of maintaining our staff and making sure that they all feel that this is a safe space where they can present themselves for who they are. And also for dealing with the children. The children come traumatized from whatever they've been through their own disease, but also through what their families have been through. And the healing process in the rehabilitation hospital is made much more difficult with these tensions overlaid on top of conditions which are difficult to begin with. And I would love to present what happened over the last year, but I think we'll get to it later. So I think I should let other
Absolutely.
people talk.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Beeri. Fadi, words about yourself and YMCA, please.
Yes, so Jerusalem International YMCA, an organization established in 1844 in London, was first established in 1878 in Jerusalem. So in 4 years, we're going to be celebrating 150 years of inclusion and in serving all communities of Jerusalem. In 1933, we moved to our current location. We are one of the most famous, architecturally famous YMCAs in the world, as our architect was the same architect for the Empire State Building. And we were the first YMCA, to be built with, we're called Sermon on Stone, and the first YMCA to be built, which its purpose is to serve the three religions, the Abrahamic religions in purpose. The CEO at the time that had the vision of all this was Dr. Archibald Hart, and he wanted to bring peace to the land and glory to God. And how can he do that? By building a place for the three religions. And also the people that were involved in building the Jerusalem International YMCA were people from the three religions and people that were, Arabs, Jews, internationals, and from all over. Everybody was working in this huge project, which is considered to be one of the biggest projects built in Jerusalem in modern time in the last 600 or 700 years. So as we said, we are the first pioneering YMCA, not to be serving Young Men Christian Association, but to be serving all association. Today, our board is, we have board members from the three religions and from all genders. We have LGBTQ, we have men, we have women. The last 2 chairs of our board were women, Jewish ladies, and it's always this kind of mixture. When the CEO is Arab, the chair of the board is from another religion and from another gender. So this is something that we always emphasize on doing. Now, our YMCA was serving all communities, and 43 years ago, there was a decision to start, to build a bilingual preschool. There was, we had staff from all religions, and Arab and Jewish, and they wanted to have a place where they can send their children into the same place. And from our preschool, 2 parents 25 years ago started the bilingual school, which is 6 schools today in Israel. Now, people ask me today, what do you do in the preschool? I mean, what do you do? You have one, teaching Arabic and Hebrew and everything. It says, what we are really doing is we're sabotaging the government's plans from the formation of the State of Israel in causing, separation between Arabs and Jews in the educational system. Because, in Israel, the educational system, if you're Arab, you go to an Arab-speaking school. If you're Jewish, you go to a Hebrew-speaking school. It's a tracked system. They never meet. They meet first time in university. And all universities in Israel are in Hebrew. You don't have any Arab universities, Arab-speaking universities. So this is a challenge also for Arabs. But it's also a challenge for us. How we thought, how do you bring 2 children in a conflict zone growing up not hating each other? You put them in the same classroom. And this is, and we do the same thing. We have the biggest sports center in Israel. It's 11,000 square meters. We have people from all religions, internationals, Arab, Jewish, everybody coming to this place, sharing the same place, sharing the same water in the swimming pool. We have a youth department which is working on empowering youth, bringing them together. We have a lot of programs from East Jerusalem and West Jerusalem, bringing students from different schools, one of them is not speaking Arabic, the other is not speaking Hebrew, so we give them English lessons. What matters is bringing them together, helping them communicate together. We have so many sports programs. We have the Peace Player. We're hosting the Peace Players. We host girls from West Jerusalem and East Jerusalem coming here, feeling safe to be here, feeling for girls from East Jerusalem, feeling safe to wear shorts and to play basketball and not be intimidated for anyone. And we've noticed the fear from all, the Jewish society fears the Arab society. The Arab society fears the Jewish society. When they come here, they find things to be different. At our YMCA, they find things different. They feel much safer. This wasn't the case after the 7th of October. We had to work really hard to bring the trust between the communities back. But today we are in a much better place. This is pretty much about the YMCA. I put our website. It's www.ymca.org.il. Please visit it. You have a lot of information about it, about our history, about the programs, about everything we're doing. Everything has to be with inclusion. And if you have any questions later, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Fadi. All right, and Raghad, can we go over to you to both introduce yourself and Sikkuy, and then you continue right on into presenting the status quo in the last decade.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Ophir, for the invitation to be here with you today. So my name is Raghad Jaraisy. I'm a Palestinian citizen of Israel. I'm originally from Nazareth, an Arab city in the northern part of Israel that was considered for years as the political heart of the Palestinian minority in Israel. And today I live in Nofa Galil, which is the neighbor mixed city of Nazareth. And why do I say that? because I want to give you an example of what Fadi said earlier about the separation and segregation and discrimination in the education system in Israel. I live in a city with more than 30% Arab population, but still there are no bilingual education system in North Galil and no Arab schools in North Galil. So every day I leave North Galil with my two little kids and go to Nazareth for them to study in a school that teaches them their mother tongue, and where they can, express their complex identity and feel that they belong. So my personal story is maybe my own motivation to be involved in the civil society that led me with the year to join the special team of Sikkuy-Aufoq and become with time the co-executive director of the organization. Sikkuy-Aufoq is an independent organization established in 1991 as a mixed paired Jewish and Arab organization operating for the promotion of equality and a truly shared society based on equality between Jews and Palestinian citizens of Israel. We have around 30 employees today, divided almost half-half, Jews and Palestinians, and we have a model of joint management and all the level of the management of the organization. And Sikkuy-Aufoq is an organization that operates mainly with the tool of direct dialogue with bureaucracy level and the government ministries and public bodies in order to change policies, government policies, and make them more open and equal to the Arab society. We do that also by direct advocacy and dialogue with the bureaucracy level and also with public advocacy and campaigns. And the way we work is a model that we developed more than 10 years ago, and it's called From Barriers to Solutions. We start by mapping the barriers in certain topics where we identify discrimination against the Arab society in planning and zoning, education, culture, the battle against crime and violence in the Arab localities, fair representation in the public sector, and other topics. We map the barriers that limits the equal dissemination of resources and budgets to the Arab society or between Jews and Arabs. And then we suggest solutions and recommendations in order to solve those barriers. And we start the dialogue with the bureaucracy level, with the management level in public institutions, such as the health institutions, the museums and cultural institutions, education system, academia, in order to make their policies more equal and to turn them, transfers them into a more equal and shared institutions. That's really in general about Sikkuy-Aufoq, and I can also write the website of the organization later in the chat, and you can learn more about Sikkuy. Can you present, Ophir, the presentation, please? So I was asked to talk about employment trends before the October 7 and the war and the crisis and after. And I really divided my lecture into two parts. So I will start by trying to give you a general overview about the history of the policies of the State of Israel towards employment in the Arab society and in mixed workplaces, and the changes that have happened in the last decade or even more. And then I will stop, and maybe we will move to Dr. Beeri and Fadi, and then I will talk about our interpretation to the crisis and its implications on working places, the labor market, and really the ability to create shared spaces in working places in Israel. Can we move to the other slide here? So if I want to try and sum up the trends in employment in Israel before the war and before October 7th, I would say that there was a slow yet stable process of narrowing gaps between Jews and Arabs in working places, a slow yet stable, positive process, but a process that was still incomplete and really limited. And I will explain why I say that. So the major investment, for years, there was huge gaps and huge discrimination in policies and legislation from the state of Israel towards the Palestinian community in Israel in all fields of life, and also in employment, directly by not investing in employment, and also in the whole package that leads to the development of employment, like education, early childhood education, transportation, and the whole package of rights and services. And the first change, I think, started in 2010, with the first 5-year plan for social and economic development in the Arab society that included the topic of employment as part of the decision. The amount of resources that were allocated then were very minimal, less than 1 billion shekels at the time, but still it was the first acknowledgement of the state of Israel in the discrimination in that field and in the need to invest more direct resources and budgets and policies in narrowing gap and in the Arab society. After the first government decision, 1539, there was the most famous, maybe, government decision, 922, that really was the biggest change or led to the biggest change on the level of investment in employment. It was also a 5-year plan for socio-economic development. It has much more resources and budgets, and really it invested a lot of money in trainings, in education, and in the facilities that leads to the development of employment, such as transportation, planning and zoning, and other aspects of narrowing gaps. And the current decision, the last decision that it's still in the implementation process, is Government Decision 550 that was approved in 2021. And it's also a 5-year plan for socioeconomic development, and it's the largest so far, and it invested the largest amount of resources and money, and it has a major part that is directly invests money and resources in trainings and education and employment. So this process, this change in the government policy and direct investment and acknowledgement of the discrimination and the need to narrow gap, that did not happen only in favor of the Arab society, but also because they understood that investing in the Arab society is investing in the economy of Israel, that there's a direct connection between the development of the Israeli economy and narrowing gap and promoting equality for the Arab society. Why do I say that the process was limited or partial? And we can flip to the other slide of here, please. Because of more than one thing. First of all, because it's true that the employment rates in the Arab society went up. The Arab male employment reached 75.7% in 2022, I think. That is very, very close to the government goal set for 2026. The Arab female employment rates went up also to 44%. That is also close to the government goal of 2026. Yet, the gaps between the employment rates in the Arab sector and in the Jewish sector continued to be large. and almost stable. So there was an investment, there was an improvement, but still not enough to narrow or close the gaps. The second problem is the fact that the majority of the investment led to more Arab employees in the labor market in general, but it did not do a good job in the diversity in the labor market that Arabs were involved or involved in. So there were still huge gaps in wage and employment rates between Arabs and Jews. We can take, and we will talk in a minute about the public sector and the representation in senior positions of the Arab society. It was only 3.6%. Much less than the government target, and much less, of course, of the percentage of the Arab society in the general society of Israel, which is around 18%. Also, we saw that the concentration of the employment power in the Arab society was in low-wage sectors and in sectors like construction, agriculture, and even when they were involved in highly paid employment places, they were always in the starting positions. Very few Arabs got promoted to senior positions, and that has a direct effect on their ability to maintain their work, to get promoted, and of course, to be in the circle of decision-making. And this is something that I'm gonna be going back to again and again, because I think this is a key issue on the process of making any place a shared place. It's not enough to have Jews and Arabs, but as Fadi is a CEO, and I think that this should be a model of integration and inclusion of the Arab society in any shared place in the country. And one of the last, I think I will refer to one last challenge in that in the process of inclusion before the war, and that is, and I think Dr. Beeri talked about it beautifully, the fact that Arabs did not feel that they belong to those shared working spaces because of the issue of the language, because of the issue of their complex identity, and the fact that they did not feel, and researchers show that very clearly, they did not feel secure in those working places, and they did not feel that they can bring themselves all in with their complex identity and history and language and narrative. And we saw that this in the routine before the war, and we see this again and again in every crisis in May 2021, and even more since October 7th. Can we move a slide? So this, just to show you in graphs, the improvement in or the raise in the employment rates. You can see women to the left and men to the right, but still you can see very clearly that the gaps are maybe slightly narrower, but they are still there and very obvious. Can we continue here? And I want to give you maybe an example to just go a little bit deeper in one of the major shared working places in Israel, and that's the civil service. The government is the largest employer in the country. So if we examine, and it's not only the largest employer, it is obliged by law to have fair representation of all the different groups of people, including, of course, the Arab society in its different bodies. And as you can see, and when I say civil service, I refer to the government ministries and related bodies and the health system. And it's very important to emphasize that this data include the health system, which has, I think, one of the largest rates of Arab employees. So if we take out the data about the health system, you will see the rates in the civil service just dropping very fast to much lower rates. So out of more than 80,000 employees, only 12,000 were Arabs, less than 15%. Again, the Arab population in Israel is around 18%. If we look about senior public roles, not any role, but senior public roles, we can see that the rate drops down to 3.6%, as I said before. And most of Arab employees occupy entry-level roles and not managing roles, meaning they are still not part. And to a large extent, there are always exceptions, but generally speaking, they are not part of the decision-making circles in the country. So you can see in the graph up the annual rate of Arab employees that is going steadily up since 2000. But if you look down to the two graphs in gray, you can see that while the general employment rates in the civil service is divided almost 50-50 between the health system and the government ministries, when it comes to Arabs, around 70% of them are involved or included in the health system and not the government ministries. That's why I said if we exclude the health system, the rates will drop down and the situation or the reality will be much, the gaps will be much more clear. We can continue to the, yeah. So that's the last slide for this part of really trying to understand what was going on before the war. And I quote the OECD last report on Israel, the economic survey from 2023. That is based to a large extent on the Ministry of Finance reports, meaning this is no news to the state of Israel. This is based on the material and data that the Ministry of Finance publishes every year. And we can see that there was positive progress, but still large gaps in the labor market between Arab society and the general population. And they talk about the reasons why this happens. One of the reasons is the really discrimination between the various streams of education that I really referred to in my own personal experience, the issue of early childhood settings, the effect of this on children, but also on women and their ability to go out and find work and be a part of the labor market, the digital divide, and I add to all of this the issue of the identity security, the experience of the Arab worker in a mixed working place, and their ability to feel that they belong, that they can affect their reality and be part of the system, not only work for the system. And I think, and I will talk about this later, that the model that Dr. Beeri presented is a moment of hope in our very complex and very harsh and very discriminatory reality. And I will stop here and maybe continue later.
Okay, thank you so much, Raghad. Your background is very important, and then it'll be a great building block on which to now go down into the trenches. So we have a picture of what things have been like and how they've been progressing and improving, but what's it been like in the last year or 14 months? Fadi, can we hear from your perspective? How has it been at the YMCA?
Sure. I'm pretty sure it hit us like it hit everyone on the 7th of October. And we knew that this is different. The impact is going to be different. We had the experience of COVID before that, experiencing total shutdown, but this time it was different. I mean, it was only us shutting down and it wasn't the world. So we had to do complete shutdown in the first few weeks because we were ordered to by Home Front Command. And we have also a hotel operating in our facility, so we had to take care of our guests. We had to provide for them. All restaurants, everything was closed around us, so we had to cater for them 24 hours a day. And we had staff from East Jerusalem that could not come over. So how do we continue giving our services when most of our staff is not permitted to leave their neighborhoods? They were blocked in their neighborhoods and to come to work. And we had to close our sports center. We had to close our preschool, the youth department, the auditorium that we have events in it. Everything got canceled. The only thing, like I said, was the hotel. And we were finding it very difficult also to give services in our hotel. Now, after we opened, we were allowed to open the sports center and the preschool and everything. We worked in limited hours. We had to like we say, adjust to the current situation with all the necessary security measures that we had to do. The hotel at the time got completely empty, so we moved our resources elsewhere, but we still had staff that couldn't come to work. And what the YMCA did is we continued paying them, they were not sent on an absence of leave, and we continued paying their salaries as much as we could. And we started facing different issues. People working for the YMCA, Palestinians, were targeted. They were targeted for what they were, every person that had a post dating back to 5 years ago, putting a like on a post back 5 years ago, or even writing anything on the media regarding the violence, regarding the war, regarding what was happening in Gaza, was immediately, people came up to the management saying, you have to fire these people. We can't continue coming here. People started saying us that they will not continue their membership in the sports center in the beginning. And we had a very difficult case with our sports center manager, where he was accused, many things, supporting Palestinians, and to tell you that he was a Palestinian, and there were many claims on him, claims based on insinuation and innuendo. Nothing substantive was offered against him, much less proven. But he was a Palestinian from East Jerusalem, serving in a high position. And for that reason, his career now stands in ruins. Now, have we become so fearful? Have we become so cowardly that we must extinguish a man, because his nationality, and because of his nationality is because of a current enemy now in Gaza? I begged our members, not to condemn him or anyone else because of their nationality, or start investigating their media or others, for their innocent associations, and not to continue with it and to end it now. But it was impossible to reason with them. It was a very difficult time, and everybody, what was a dichotomic thinking. It was or us or them. We still feel that today, but less, it's as time passes by, people are understanding different things. And also, we started at the YMCA, we started having other organizations in Jerusalem that were expelled from where they were, and they came and they sought refuge in the YMCA, such as Hebrew schools teaching Arabs how to speak Arabic. They came and they sought refuge in our YMCA. We had also organizations that were providing food for West Bank started in East Jerusalem, started seeking refuge in our YMCA because they were expelled from where they were. And on the other hand, we opened our sports center for free for all the displaced families that were from the south of Israel and the northern part of Israel that had to leave their homes because of the war. So we were serving all communities. And for the displaced communities, it was also very difficult to seeing that they were being served by mostly Arab staff. They ran away from the Arab war, from Arabs because of the war in the south, but now Arabs are taking care of them, helping them, taking care of their physical health and their mental health also at the same time. So it was very difficult for them. But still, till today, we see this, the tension between our members towards our staff. We don't see the tension between our staff towards each other because we've been here. Most of them been working for many, many, many years together. They're acquainted with each other. We celebrate all religions, all holidays in a shared way and in an equal way. But it was still, it was very difficult in the first days of the war, but today we can feel it less, and we had to make sure that when we put we put our motto in every place we could hang it and to say that this is a place for all. We don't talk about coexistence. We talk about shared living, shared spaces. Because coexistence is something that we don't say anymore. We're more realistic when there's no coexistence in Israel today. There's shared spaces. And this is what we concentrate on. Yeah. Ophir, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you, Fadi. Thank you very, very much for the picture at the YMCA. And it was encouraging to hear that amongst your staff, it wasn't as bleak as one might have imagined. That's very encouraging. Obviously, you're doing good work.
We're an organization. We're not a new organization, so this made things more easy. We have staff that are working together for 40 years. They've celebrated weddings together. They went into bar mitzvahs Arabs went to bar mitzvahs, friends, and it's a long process. It's not something that you can dismantle in a day or two.
That's very important, and I think we're really learning something from that super deep acquaintance can really make a difference. And if I'm not mistaken, the research indicates that another thing which can really make a difference is having a superordinate goal. And it seems that a hospital would be a place where that applies. So that's the perfect segue to move over to you, Dr. Beeri.
Thank you. Yes, I completely understand what Fadi was talking about. And I must say that the days after October 7th were some of the toughest days in everybody's life here. But for me, as somebody who has placed, shared spaces, if not to say coexistence, as absolutely a top priority in the spirit of ALYN, it was devastating to feel very close to everything crumbling down and disintegrating around us. And I kept coming back to what I learned from a wonderful research institute and teaching center in Jerusalem called Accord, working with the Hebrew University, and they've given us models to help us deal with situations. And they've taught us that when you are stressed, as in a situation such as October 7th, you tend to find solace in your original group, your home group, your family group, your tribe, your religion, your sense of belonging, and that sense of everything shaking around you and nothing seeming secure, and what seemed like a safe space suddenly turning unsafe really rocked ALYN. And even though we've been working for many years together, and we do have trying to reach an equal status at everything, we do reflect the society that's around us. I mean, I don't want to pinkwash everything. We have staff that come from, you know, all sections of society, but indeed, the most of our Palestinian Arab workers do work in not the highest levels of leadership, even though the doctors are really equal, but doctors and nurses are pretty equal. In other areas, it's not as much. The first day after October 7th, mistrust was so bad that when you had two aides working together, and a Palestinian would come in the morning and ask the Jewish one, "Morning, how are you?" The Jewish one would say, "How can you ask me how I am? Can't you see what's happening here?" This was the level of tension. You couldn't even say a good morning to each other without making it sound as an implication to who you belong to and how you see the situation. The distrust was so bad. We did not have an issue with Palestinians working, not showing up to work. The dedication of people from East Jerusalem was so high that people who couldn't get out of their villages around Jerusalem, not only because of roadblocks due to the Israeli police, but also because of roadblocks of local people who were trying to prevent them from going into Jerusalem, because they had those double blockades. They slept in neighbors' places. They drove all around Jerusalem. They just wanted to make sure that they get to work on time. It was really interesting to see how everybody still is concentrated about the kids, but the closeness between the different groups wasn't the same at all. I had Jewish staff who worked for years at ALYN coming and saying, "I cannot listen to people talking in Arabic. I don't want to see them praying." I did realize, I mean, we all realized that everybody was very, very tense and horrified. And the answer to everybody was, if you cannot deal with the situation, take time off. No anger, no recriminations. You can't work it. We're not going to change. This is who we are. If you cannot deal with it, go home, stay home for a few weeks. Think about it. If you feel that you can come back and work in this shared situation, you're welcome back. If not, then go your own way. We're not going to change the way that we look at the world. That was one thing. The second thing was how to deal with the need of the staff to feel a part of the effort in the Israeli society to aid the people in the south. And even though we're a hospital, we didn't take in any injured people because there were no injured children. The children were either killed or set free. There were no injured children. So as a hospital, we couldn't take part in dealing with the situation. So people wanted to feel a part of anything. They wanted, we had nurses wanting to go around hanging huge Israeli flags all around the hospital. As a chief of a hospital, I couldn't tell people, "Thou shalt not hang Israeli flags in an Israeli hospital in Jerusalem," even though this is not wise, no welcoming, no open, not smart in the situation. So we had to create a situation where people would feel secure, appreciated, understood. The need to present symbols and belonging would be appreciated, but without alienating other groups. We had a situation in which the nurses union decided 1 month into the war that there's going to be an event at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning in which they decided there would be a 1 minute standing ovation in silence in honor of the people injured, killed, and kidnapped on October 7th. And the nurses were required to oblige. Now, imagine the situation. This is a joint hospital. We have Palestinians and Jews. We have people of all many beliefs and so on. Imagine the situation in a department where the nurses suddenly stand still in honor of the situation, and somebody else does not stand still, but moves around because they don't understand, because they don't agree, because they don't feel they belong. Immediately in that atmosphere at the time, they would immediately be labeled as belonging to the Hamas. There's nothing in between. Those were the feelings at the time. So I could not allow the situation to happen in which there would be an event which would split the staff even further. And I cannot tell people to disregard the event because it was a national event in Israel and all the nurses around Israel would join. So what we decided to do is to hold an ALYN event in a certain place at the hospital with a proper memorial service with music and play and prayers and lighting of memorial candles. And we invited everybody who feels the need to come and join together in prayer to come and join us at that moment. What that meant is that people who felt that they cannot face the situation because of anything, because a lot of the Jews couldn't face the situation as well, opted out. A lot of the people who did not want to take part of the situation could say that they or did need people to stay in the departments and not join. But what actually happened, that first of all, this was a very moving event that everybody who were there were very, very felt that it was a strengthening event. It gave us power. But the second is that a lot of the non-Jewish workers and staff at the hospital stood with us in the same event and opted to join in. And it completely changed the atmosphere in the hospital from suspicion and mistrust to a feeling that indeed we are together in this. We might have differences. Our children might be, some of us have children in the army and others have relatives in Gaza, but we're still together a part of this. Now, it wasn't, the same day that things changed, but I have to say that a year later, almost everything is back to normal, back to the way that we worked before. We did not have an issue with Facebook posts, etc., because we just wouldn't allow it to go there. When people started pointing fingers at other people, we set up a decision group that we called checking the safety zone of discourse. And basically, we used a very simple method, again, thanks to the Accord organization, saying, you're allowed to say anything that you want because there's freedom of speech, even if it makes me very angry. And no one is going to censor you on your private social media, whatever your job is in ALYN. That was one thing. The second is you are not allowed to call for the death, destruction, annihilation of any other group or call for violence. Whatever the point is, that will not be tolerated. And in between, there's this group of things that are not clear that would be discussed. We did not have to sanction anybody, but we did have to sometimes go deeper into people pointing fingers and to explain to them that if they put a phrase from the Quran, that does not mean that these people are expressing something that is, wrong. I mean, everybody is entitled to that. But that really calmed the situation because there was somebody who would take control of the situation, take responsibility for seriously looking at the matters, and the feeling of the place was that we're keeping the people safe while making sure that we won't tolerate any violence, physical or oral. It was more difficult with the patients themselves. What do you do with a child who sits there with an older brother? The older brother is looking at his phone and there are videos there that are very violent to any side. We had to take the families and discuss this with them and tell them that this will not be tolerated. We won't stop treating your child, but the child will be treated with the offensive person sent out of the hospital, just to make it feel more inclusive. And it worked, but it's still a work in progress. Every day there's a new challenge. Just I'll always finish with one anecdote, which relates to even before this, just to show you how difficult things are. We used to have a hospital gathering twice a year, once for Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, and one for Passover, Pesach. And the Muslim workers never came. And everybody was like, well, they don't feel that they are part of the holiday, until we asked the people, why don't you come? And they said, well, it's called in Ivrit, it's called Haramat Kosit, raising of a toast. We're toasting the New Year, or we said, we just don't want to be a part of any event which is around alcohol. Said, really? This is not about the alcohol. The alcohol is just, you know, a way that we talk about it. Toss the alcohol out. Stop calling it haramat kosit, you know, toasting. Started calling it welcoming the holiday. By the next year, everybody was in. Nobody stayed out. It was all about just asking the people, what do you need to feel more comfortable in the situation? But for that to happen, you need to look people in the eyes. And October 7th took from us the ability to look each other in the eye. And we're not completely back there yet. And I'm hoping that we will sometime.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Beeri, for those stories and for the somewhat happy end as well. I'm getting the feeling that while things were not rosy at either the YMCA nor the ALYN Hospital, they may have been among the luckier, more fortunate, and maybe better led institutions in the country. We're going to turn back to Raghad now. And Raghad, can you give us a more comprehensive research-based picture of what it's been like nationwide in the last 10, 12, 14 months?
Yeah.
Thank
Before
you.
we go back to the presentation, I just want to say that what we heard now emphasizes the need for policy in the process of building shared working places. It's never been only the relationship between the employees. It's a lot the responsibility of the employer to take charge and to bring in an inclusive, diverse, equal policy where everybody can feel that they belong and that they are secure. And Dr. Beeri and Fadi gave examples of that kind of policy. Only that way, both on the level of the public institutions, shared workspaces, and the government, of course, we can lead a change that will maybe take us or bring us more close to a truly shared society. And I just want to say that as an employer, as a co-executive director of a shared Jewish-Arab organization, we too dealt with a lot of challenges since October 7 massacre and the war. And we really, I remember myself, I think in day 2 or 3 after October 7th, just sitting together with my co-executive director and saying the well-being of our staff is our main goal in this period. The only way we can go through this period with minimum damage is to bring all the tools needed for the staff in order to survive it and be able to work together and maintain a good environment in the workplace with all the challenges and difficulties. So that was a personal insight, but can we bring back the presentation with the next slide, please? Okay, so I'll try to just kind of bring back the trends on the more national level of the impact of the war on workplaces and the labor market. What happened after October 7th on the level of the employment? First of all, if you remember the employment rates that I referred to earlier, all the employment rates just dropped and the unemployment rates went up in the general society and in the Arab society. And in the Arab society, the unemployment rates just went up 3 times more than the Jewish society. The unemployment rates was raised from 5.2% to 15, almost 16% in the Arab society. And in the Jewish society, it rose from 3.1% to 5.6%. One of the reasons for this is that the key sectors affected by the war, especially in the first weeks or month, were sectors with high rates of Arab employees, construction, and of course, low-paid sectors, construction, agriculture, retail, hospitality. And that's one of the reasons why the unemployment rates went up in the Arab society. But that's not the only reason. The tension in mixed workplaces was another reason. In researches that were done a few weeks after the war, they showed that 44% of Arab high-tech workers, high-tech, yeah, I'm not talking about industry or construction, just feared speaking Arabic in their workplaces, partially because of the general environment, and maybe partially because, and I want to connect this again to policies, of the arming civilian policies that Minister Ben-Gvir led since the beginning of the war, that really allowed people to just go around working places with their guns or rifles. And I think that both the tension, the mutual fear, maybe the feeling of animosity that the war brought, together with the policies, really led to this sense of fear among Arab employees. And the researches in the beginning of the war in October and November 2023 also show that both Jews and Arabs, and I think this is an ACORD research that Dr. Beeri mentioned earlier, that more than half of the Arab and Jewish population said in one of their surveys that they feel that the relationship between Jews and Arabs was negatively affected or changed in a negative way. And maybe if we, the academia, the higher education system is one of the biggest shared working places. And there, around 80% of the Arab students in October 2023 said in one of the surveys that they feel insecure and that they feel that they cannot express themselves and bring their complex identity to the campus, and that if they do that, they will be persecuted. And that did not come from vain. Since the beginning of the war, the Arab society was persecuted. We heard and saw and read stories of doctors and nurses in the health system who were fired or invited to hearings after they posted something on Facebook. That happened also for Arab educators, teachers in the Jewish education system. That happens in joint working places, almost everywhere. And Arabs felt insecure, felt persecuted, and that affected their experience in shared working spaces and in general. And that is not a matter of, or not only a matter of public discourse and feelings, but also a process that is led by the government, by legislation, by policies, and by the rhetoric of the government since the beginning of the war. One of the most dangerous legislation that was passed only recently in the last few months was a legislation that gave the authority, large authority, to the Minister of Education and his CEO to just fire teachers if they are suspected to have supported publicly what they call a terror action. But we know that in Israel, the definition of terror is very, very wide, and it can include almost everything, even any compassion or solidarity with the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. And if the Minister of Education decides to fire a teacher and the school refuses to apply his decision, the school will pay the price of this decision, and its budgets will be cut, and it will be held to sanctions. Another very dangerous policy and change is the cut in the general budgets for the Arab society, including the employment budgets and the socio-economic development budgets that I mentioned earlier in the 5-year plan for the socio-economic development in the Arab society. While the general government budgets were cut only by 5%, as a result of the expenses of the war, the Arab society budgets that were allocated through the 5-year socio-economic development plans were cut by 15%. And that will have direct implications in the short run and in the long run on the inclusion processes in employment, on transportation, on the establishment of industrial zones in the Arab society, and more and more and more processes that are crucial for a truly equal and shared employment places. And of course, equality in employment. Can we move forward here? And I see that we are short in time, so I'll just maybe say in one sentence that there are many, many challenges on the level of policies and legislation and discrimination and whatever you can think of. But I think that the main challenge is the identity security. I think that one of the main reasons why unemployment rates in the Arab society just jumped up at the beginning of the war is not the economic situation, is not the socio-economic development and its limitation. It's the fact that those employees were seen as Arabs, and there was discrimination against them from the level of the management of those working places who hired them. And only because of the inability of those working places, not only because, but also because of the inability of working places to accept the complex identity, we are standing today with those challenges and damages that should be repaired and restored and solved in the next few years. And just maybe if we look at the future, can you move here to the last slide? I would say that our main areas of action should be those 5. The issue of identity security, working with working places and in front of the government in order to change the policies and make working places more open and equal. The issue of budgets and resources, not only to maintain and save what is left from after the cuts from the budgets for socioeconomic development, but also to make sure that there are enough budgets in the rehabilitation and restoration processes that will come in the next few years, not only for the material restoration, but also to the restoration of a shared society and maybe to bringing it to a better place even from what it was before the war. 3, fighting dangerous policies and legislation. I gave an example to one, but we see and get and fight such legislations and policy on a weekly basis. That is our reality since October 7. Fighting discrimination and working with employers on really their role in hiring Arab employees, maintaining Arab employees, and making their experience a positive one and a secure one. And the last thing is the issue of accessibility. Accessibility to employment in the Arab society and in mixed working places. And here maybe I will end with really an example of from one of our latest researches on the health system that we did last year. We checked the signage in the 12 biggest hospitals in Israel. We checked more than 2,500 signs in those hospitals, and less than quarter of them were translated to Arabic. And this is not only a symbolic thing. This is a symptom of really the fact that those places, workplaces, are not open and equal for all of their employees and, of course, visitors. We saw this also in cultural spaces and museums. There, the rates were even lower in the level of the accessibility to Arabic. We did a lot of work with the Museum of Tel Aviv and other museums, and we see the progress. We see and maybe that's that we can't say this about the government in the last 2 years, but when we work with public institutions and we bring the data and we show them the gaps, they are to a large extent open to change and to slow but steady inclusion and equality. Thank you.
Thank you, Raghad. Appreciate that for the larger research survey perspective. Very helpful. Very helpful indeed. I think we have a couple of moments for maybe a question or two. Let me see what we have here. I have one. Okay, I hope we have time for two. Fadi, Dr. Beeri and Raghad both mentioned Accord at Hebrew University, and we at the Rossing Center have also found them to be very helpful. Have you had some outside resources that were significant in helping you navigate over the last year?
If I can answer that, we have an organization that works with us, you know, we had other issues with staff before, but we kind of changed that into dealing with inner tensions between staff. They were minor, but we had a few staff that left, members that left. And so we're working with private companies, you know, helping us, you know, an organization that help organizations like us. But we did seek help at the time.
Okay, thank you. Raghad, a question for you, in addition to thanks. The questioner is intrigued by the exclusion of Haredi, ultra-Orthodox men and women, from your Jewish versus Arab comparison charts. They were explicitly left out, as you noted in the fine print, which I could see. Two questions. Why was this choice made? And do Arabs have any similar societal groups that don't join the workforce or don't want women to join the workforce?
First of all, as for the first question, this is not an exclusion that we did. This is, I quote and I use the data from the official government reports, and there they do a very clear division between different groups in the Jewish and in the Arab society. And when speaking about employment, they exclude the Haredi Jews because of the very high unemployment rates there, but that has cultural and other reasons that are not directly or not only directly connected to the issue of the government policies and resources. That's how the government presents this. Yeah, we can, of course, argue that. And the second question about the Arab society, of course, we are a very diverse society with many different religions and groups, cultural groups, and there are groups who believe more or less in inclusion of women, in gender rights, and in, you know, they hold different cultural narratives. So it exists also in the Arab society, of course.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned the budget and how important that is. And just today, I believe, the budget for next year began its process of being passed. So we'll see where that's going to take us and what challenges it will produce. I think our time is expiring, so we're going to bring this to a conclusion. As I mentioned at the beginning, we naturally launched this new season of monthly webinars with a topic generated by the current difficult period. In the future, we'll be dealing with other crucial issues. Those are our plans. We hope that you'll join us next month when I hope that we'll be able to address the issue of free speech versus incitement, which is something that both Dr. Beeri and Fadi referred to today. We hope that you found today's webinar interesting, informative, and worthwhile. It'll be available on our YouTube channel if you want to recommend it to other people. So once again, I'd like to thank our three presenters and say how glad I am that people like you are doing the work that you're doing. We're glad that there are partners like you out there. We appreciate your taking the time this evening, and we're grateful to you for sharing your perspectives and your very interesting insights. So thank you all for joining this Rossing Center program today. Shalom.